Sefer Shoftim. Okay? Which is basically what we've studied up to now. Other than the introduction or background of the cycle. The next many prakim are what I call in green proof of cycle. So I've separated them like we did in last week's shir to the good shoftim and the less good shoftim. We discovered that not only by their character, but also by the number of years that they achieved quiet and peace throughout the country. Prakim 10 and Yud are called transition prakim because as we said, as we said, Avimelech wasn't a real shofet. He grabbed the leadership. He was never appointed by Hashem. And in Perek Yud, we saw how the cycle became more complicated. And the question we're going to deal with is very clear from the board. The question about the end, Prakim Yud Zayin and Tel Kafel, the last 5 Prakim of Sefer Shoftim, there is no shofet, there is no cycle. What are those Prakim about? What are they doing there? What do they contribute to Sefer Shoftim? Okay? And we're going to begin by looking in some detail at Perek Yud Zayin. The other Prakim we're going to deal with much more quickly. Perek Yud Zayin Pasuk Aleph. We've got that. You probably need to open your Tanach unless you know it by heart. Anybody who knows it by heart would like to begin reading? I didn't think. Okay. Vayihi ish me'har Ephraim u'shemo Michael. Okay, there's a guy from Har Ephraim who's called Michael. We haven't met him before. Vayomer le'imo. Pay attention to this passage because it's a little complicated. Elef u'mea ha'kesef asher lukaf lach. The 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you. Va'at alit. You swore. You told me. Right? Meaning you swore, you cursed the person who had taken that money. Hine hakesef iti, ani lakati. Says Michael to his mother, actually I've got the money, I'm the one who took it. Vatomer imo, baruch b'nu l'Hashem. So the mother says, blessed is my son, to God. Why is she blessing him if he stole her money? And then it goes on to say, he returns the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. But what does she say? I have dedicated or designated this money to God from me, Livni, to give it back to my son, to make a pesel masecha, which is a molten image, and now I'm going to return it to you. He returned the money to his mother. Wait a minute, didn't he just give it back to him? So we're getting confused about exactly where the money is. She took 200 pieces of silver, gave it to a tzoref. A tzoref is a silversmith. Made it into some sort of image. And it was in the house of Michael. He has some sort of godly house of God. He made an ephod. We saw an ephod. What did we see an ephod before? Who made an ephod and it didn't turn out too well? No, they made it in staff, similar, compared to that. Last week, Sharon made the ephod. You remember? We said there was a problem. Either or, right? We said it was a monument, but it turned out to be some kind of a Zara. One of his sons became a Kohen. What's going on? One, there's a kid stealing from his mother. Number two, she curses whoever steals it, but when he says it to me, she says, oh great, Baruch Hashem. Secondly, she's so happy that this happened that she wants to thank Hashem. So what does she do? What does she make? An idol. Why is she making an idol to thank God? What? Then we have a passage which repeats itself several times in this section. I'm sure you know this passage. בימים ההם אין מלך בישראל, איש הישר בעיניו יעשה. How would you translate that pasuk? Not how would ArtScroll translate that pasuk, not how would JPS translate that pasuk. How would you translate that pasuk? It's not a difficult pasuk to translate. How would you explain it? Yes?
Can you repeat the pasuk?
Yeah, what do you think the pasuk means?
No, which part?
pasuk vav. בימים ההם אין מלך בישראל, איש הישר בעיניו יעשה. Yes, Liat?
Trying to sense there wasn't a better king or a more just king than no?
Ain't there? There's no king. Yes?
There's like no king and everyone would do what they thought
Right,
was
there's
right.
no king, everybody did what they liked. Meaning, it seems to me, right, that there's anarchy. There's no king, there's anarchy. But does that connect to the first part of the story? Yes.
Yeah, it's saying that society is really messed up right now, that someone who wants to be forgiven by God is given an idol. Like that's this society right now.
But,
They don't know
is
what
that
to do.
about not having a king?
Well, a king would be a good role model, and
You're assuming a king will be a good role. Fair enough. So you're saying there is a lack of
it's like anarchy. There's a lack of.
anarchy, sorry?
Leadership.
A lack of leadership. Yes,
Isn't it that she, when she was a kid, she would have to wait till that get
Okay. So you're saying if I was a kid, there wouldn't be a way to get Hashem. You're all focusing on the fact that somehow the lack of king must be reflected in her misguided religious direction.
Yes, because she makes it as that way.
Okay. So I agree with you, so I think we have to explain this passage a little differently, and we'll get back to it hopefully by the end of the show. Okay? Now let's go on with Perek Yudai, sorry, Pasuk Zay. ויהי נער מבית לחם יהודה, ממשפחת יהודה, והוא לוי, והוא גר שם. There's a guy from Beit Lechem Yehuda. Beit Lechem Yehuda is not far from here. It's down the road, right? Down Hebron, before you get to Hebron, you get to Beit Lechem. He's from the tribe of Yehuda, and he's a Levi. Well, I don't understand. Is he a Judahite or a Levite? Which one is he?
He's a lady living
He's a Levi living in Yehuda. Why is he living in Yehuda?
because they were like the teachers.
Yeah, in fact, because the Leviim were the teachers, and they were
Living.
spread out amongst the different tribes. Correct. So he's a Levite who's been assigned to the Yehuda school. Just like I'm a Levite and I was assigned to the Midrash Horovitz school. Right? Okay. Pasuk Chet. I am a Levite. Vayelech ha'ish meha'ir מבית לחם יהודה, he leaves בית לחם יהודה, he leaves יהודה, this Levi, לגור באשר ימצא, to live where he finds. Where he finds what? Where he finds a nice little cottage with a garden so he can grow his vegetables. Where he finds a wife. What's he looking for? So let's see. ויבוא הר אפרים על בית מיכה לעשות דרכו. He gets to Har Ephraim. That's where he ends up. He gets to Micha. You remember the guy from the first part of the parrot? Oh look, we meet him again. ויאמר לו מיכה מאין תבוא? He says, where are you coming from? ויאמר אליו לוי אנוכי מבית לחם יהודה. I'm a Levi. Oh, Levi, what a guy. I came from בית לחם יהודה. ואנוכי הולך לגור באשר אמצא. And I'm on my way to live in a place where I find. Wink, wink, hint, hint. What's he hinting at? We'll see. ויאמר לו מיכה שבי עמי. Stay with me. ויהי לאב ולכהן. You just got a promotion. You're no longer mere Levi anymore. I'm going to make you an Av, a father, and a Kohen, a priest. Right? ואנוכי אתן לך 10 כסף לימים בערך בגדים ומחייתך. I'll give you 10 pieces of silver for probably for a month, and money to buy clothes and sustenance. And the Levi said, okay. What was he looking for? Huh?
He wanted to upgrade.
He was looking for a better job. Salary in the Yehuda school was not that good, right? The truth is, the kids were a little annoying as well. Right? He was looking for a better deal. He gets to Micha, he says, I'm looking to leave Asher Emsa. Micha says, I want a Levi, but I don't mind. He doesn't have to be a Levi anymore. Now he's a priest, he can head my temple. I'll give him whatever he needs. I've got lots of money. After all, my mother just gave it to me. All is good. Can you do that as a Levi? Can you build an idol? No. You can't build an idol. A Levi can't shirk his responsibility to teach Am Yisrael, and he certainly can't suddenly become a priest. People say, I often joke with people, I say, I'm a Levi, but I'm working for promotion. Right? It ain't going to happen unless a coin doesn't show up in shul, and then I can get the first aliyah. Right? Yeah, it's not as exciting as you think. Right? I've never done Berkat Kohanim. I also can't do that thing with my hands, so it doesn't matter. Right? All I get to do is wash God's hands, and I haven't done that for 6 months. So, some Nevi'im do, but I shy away. Can't really wash hands with social distance. Okay. So the Levi goes. Vayol ha-Levi lashevet et ha'ish, vayhi lo ke'echad mino. Right? And look what Micha says in Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayol Micha, ata yadati, now I know, ki yetiv Hashem li, that God will be good to me, ki hayali ha-Levi lechohen. Because the Levi became a Kohen. Really? You think that God's going to be happy with that? What? So first of all, we have one answer in this parrot. Who the Nevi'im? We already said they are the teachers, the educators, the spiritual leaders, the people who are responsible for teaching us how to lead our lives, how to lead a Torah true life. And what is this Levi doing? Shirking his responsibility, going somewhere else, taking a job in an idolatrous temple. So he is a symbol or a symptom of the problem with the religious leadership of the time. And the first part of the parak and the last part of the parak is a corollary of that failure of the religious leadership. Meaning, look, people have lost their way. They don't know. Maybe we can't blame Micha. He thinks that the Pesach HaMasechah is a good thing, and he feels that Hashgacha Pratit, divine providence, has sent him a new leader. Really? No. But that's what he thinks. Okay. So the first thing we see is a lack of spiritual leadership. We've already pointed out that there's a pasuk that says Ein Melech B'Yisrael. So there is no physical or civil leadership either. What happens in the next parak? Very good. Shevet Dan are looking for a nachala. Why is Shevet Dan looking for a nachala? Didn't they get a nachala? Everybody got a nachala. Remember we saw it in Sefer Yoshua, we saw it at the beginning of Sefer Shoftim. Everybody got a piece of land. Why is Shevet Dan still, the end of Sefer Shoftim, looking around for a nachala? So what's the answer? You read the parak, what does it say?
People surrounding it.
The people surrounding it, sorry?
The people surrounding it took it over.
Right, but basically they were too strong. They couldn't drive out the Canaanim there. So they looked for an easier place to conquer. And that's what they do. They go somewhere else. They find an easier place to conquer. They kill lots of people. They even join. They bring Micha along too. The two stories join. And basically, it's a horrible story. And it's also a horrible story, another story of shirking responsibility. They had a nachala. If they're taking it somewhere else, they're driving other people out. Where does that come? Let me ask you a different question. We'll get to a different question in a minute. Okay, very good tip. This is the reason I told you to have a light breakfast before you eat. Right? Very good tip. There's a horrible story of Levi. If we were learning Sefer Shoftim in depth, we'd spend quite a lot of time on this story, obviously. What's the story remind you of? Yes?
Lot and his daughters.
Lot and his daughters. Okay. I think you already pointed that out in the paper chapter. This is a very similar story to Lot, not so much Lot and his daughters, but Lot and his guests, and the Malachim and his daughters, because we see people who didn't have a place to stay overnight. One person takes them into the house. The rest of the people are abhorred at that. Like, who's doing Hachnasat Orchim in our midst? Go over to him and say, bring us the guests, we want to do with them as we see fit. And what does he offer? He offers his daughter and the guy's Pilegesh. Right? Just like Lot offered his two daughters. Now, what's the difference between the two stories?
They were successful here.
They were successful there, but why were they not successful at the time of Lot? Because there were two malachim there who stopped it. Here, there were no malachim there were no angels who were going to disperse the crowd. So he ended up throwing up the Pilegesh, and the Pilegesh gets abused all night, and eventually he finds her in the morning and she appears to be dead. Now, again, we don't have time to look into this, but this is one of the most obvious and the clearest case of a parallel between two episodes in Tanach. Thematic and in terms of words. For instance, if you look at Pasuk Bekiut Pasuk Kafet. The guests are, they're having a good time, they're eating, they're drinking. Members of the city, members like people up to no good. Nasabu et habayit. That phrase nasabu is the same phrase as used in the Bekiut in Bereshit with Lot. And it's a word which I don't think it appears anywhere else in Tanach. Right? There are other linguistic parallels and thematic parallels. What is the parallel telling us? Remember, the story of Lot happened first. So the author of Sefer Shoftim, in the way he tells the story of Pilegesh Vayibach, wants to remind us of the story of Lot. What is it telling us then? Sorry? Maybe that the Malachim are missing, but I think more it's telling us about the behavior here of the people. What is it telling us?
That they like the Sodom.
Sorry?
That they like the people of
I
Sodom.
like the people of Sodom. These are members of Am Yisrael, and they're acting like people of Sodom, about whom the Torah says, "V'anshei Sodom ra'im v'chata'im la'Hashem ha'od." They're very evil to Hashem. Sodom and Amorah that Hashem destroyed completely. And look what point we got to. That we're acting like Sodom. If we add these three stories together, we have three horrible sins. Avodah Zarah, Shfichut Damim, in the case of Gilui Arayot. Three cardinal sins are committed across these three prakim, but we're not done yet. Because what happens in prakim, in Tanach, we have a civil war. The people are so upset about what the Am Yisrael are so upset about what the members of Shevet Binyamin did to the poor woman, the poor Pilegesh, that they say, give us these people so we can kill them, and Shevet Binyamin aren't prepared to do that. And we end up with a war between Shevet Binyamin and Am Yisrael, and thousands and thousands of people die. Right? Civil war in modern day Hebrew is called Milchemet Achim, War of Brothers. And it's only towards the end of Sefer Shoftim that it is. We're told again, right at the end of the Sefer, Perek Kaf, the last pasuk, Vayamim Ahem Ein Melech B'Yisrael Ish Hayashar B'Yisrael. Now let's try and understand why these prakim happen. So first of all, chronologically, when did these prakim happen? Many of the Parshim explain that this didn't happen at the end of Sefer Shoftim, but this happened across the time frame of Sefer Shoftim. There are two proofs. One, which is based on logic, and one, which is hinted at in the Nevi'im. The logical proof is Shevet Dan is still looking for an Nachala. What was Shevet Dan for the entirety of Sefer Shoftim? According to the Rambam, Sefer Shoftim was basically spanned about 350 years. They were nomads, they were homeless for so long. No, the chances are this happened much earlier. Not at the end of Sefer Shoftim, not after the time period of Shimshon. Secondly, if you look at Perek Yudchet, Pasuk Lamed, again, when we have the connection between the two stories, it says, "Vayakimu lahem b'nei Dan et ha'pasel." B'nei Dan, they took the image, the idol from Mika's house. They established it. Yonatan ben Gershom ben, what does it say there? Menashe. Hu avanav hayu kohanim l'shevet Adonai al yom gelot ha'aretz. Yonatan, the son of Gershom, the son of somebody, and they were kohanim. The Shevet Adani in this place. They put this Pesel Mikah in their alternative Mikdash the whole time that the Mikdash was in Shiloh. Now, spoiler alert, the Mikdash in Shiloh gets destroyed very near the beginning of Sefer Shmuel. So if this was at a chronological point, that means in a few prakim time. But it says that this Pesel was there Kol Yemei Heyot Beit Elokim Shiloh. The whole time the Beit Mikdash was in Shiloh, the Mishkan, was in Shiloh, which was established at the end of Sefer Yoshua. You notice I said Yonatan ben Gershom ben something. It says Menashe, but the Nun is raised. As if we could read it without the Nun, and then what would it say? Moshe. Midrash tells us that this is actually, this is very tragic, Moshe Rabbeinu's grandson, Gershom, was his son. And Michvod, in order to honor Moshe Rabbeinu's memory, it says Menashe. It's actually really Moshe. Now, if it's Yonatan, if it's Moshe Rabbeinu's grandson, he could have been living 350 years later. Right? The chances are also that this happened much earlier in Sefer Shoftim. So if this happened earlier, what are these prophets doing? The answer is very simple. One of the things we ask ourselves when we learn through Sefer Shoftim is, why don't Am Yisrael get it? Why don't they realize that every time they sin, they get punished, they cry out to God, Hashem brings a shofet, and then they do it all over again. Even when the cycle gets more complicated, when Hashem says, wait, I've had enough bonds from you, go cry out to the gods you've chosen, they still don't get it. Why don't they get it? Let's look at the spiritual and civil level that Am Yisrael has stood to. Ein melech b'Yisrael, ish hayashar beinav ya'aseh, and therefore, this is what turns out. These are the sort of things that are happening. Avodah zarah, shfichut damim, I hesitate to suggest that maybe these are just the most severe cases of the four things that we've written up here, and maybe they happen in other places and in other episodes across the Torah.